I wanted to make sure that Naomi has plenty of time to go through her topic, the latest and greatest around the Project Cortex, and what is it actually all about.
Thanks so much, Faisal. I appreciate it. Actually, being joined by two of my colleagues today from our team. So Eric Gradel, who's in our knowledge experiences area, and Nkem Okoye, who's looking at our day zero experiences and first run experiences. So Eric is actually going to present the slides. So thank you for doing that. And then we'll talk through a couple of different things here. So I know we have a limited amount of time, and I know that both Faisal and I can talk very fast. So we'll keep going there. So, but we'll try to do this quickly. So I do want to spend a little time here to go ahead and introduce Project Cortex, really. Hopefully you saw some of the announcements that we had at Ignite. We want to make sure that you feel good about those different areas. And so with Cortex, really, we think about sort of the journey that we've been on with the content services work, obviously a long history in sort of Microsoft 365 and looking at the content services area. It's really about understanding how we're expanding and sort of defining that vision of the future. So what does content services, the traditional, what we used to call ECM way back, sort of thinking about how that evolves, and then really thinking about, what's the future of knowledge inside of an organization. So if we think about sort of where we want to go with Project Cortex, it's really around these three big areas. So looking at sort of how we manage and organize and empower this content. So when I think about management, it's really about, how are we helping you to connect all of the data that you have across your Microsoft 365 ecosystem and beyond. We do, of course, recognize, companies are connected into lots and lots of different data sources. You have a great deal of applications. We want to think about how we're able to take a lot of that information and move that into a knowledge network and be able to use all of that data that's available to you in your ecosystem. And we also want to make sure that we're connecting not just the investments that we're making in knowledge, but also the other investments that are happening across Microsoft 365. So I know you've had great calls, obviously, with folks like the tasks and workflow people. We've also talked through Microsoft information protection and some of those great compliance features. And so thinking about how all of that holistically, how that comes together in Microsoft 365. We also think about, from an organization perspective here, like how we're helping you to connect a lot of that knowledge across the different teams and the systems. And so if you've ever been involved with any kind of knowledge management project in the past, you may have found that this was truly a heroic effort that had to go on across your company. And so it was really difficult to keep it up to date. And we want to make sure that we're using and connecting information the best way that we can. And then, of course, in that empowerment area, it's really about, how we're helping you to really get that information that you need, that knowledge at the time that you need it. So how do we make sure it's embedded in all the experiences that you have in Microsoft 365 and that we're really delivering it to you where you need it every day? So we think about sort of the next stages here and thinking about where we are going with Project Cortex. We really want to think about how we're putting all these pieces together. So, leveraging that investment that we have, obviously connecting up what we're doing with SharePoint, and then understanding a little bit more about how we can, make the best of AI and all of the pieces that we have across Microsoft. This is not just about us as the, OneDrive and SharePoint team. This is really about how we deliver across the full breadth of Microsoft and making sure that we have the great machine learning and the great AI available and putting these things together. And then, expecting this to be all, of course, part of the trust and security and controls that we have with Microsoft 365. So all of those pieces coming together. So it's kind of thinking about these different areas, and it's all good. So with this sort of empower area, it's really about how we delve into the knowledge experiences. And so it's easier perhaps to start from thinking about what an end user sees and making sure that, they're getting the information that they need. But at the same time, we've got all this super powerful AI going on behind the scenes. We want to, of course, make it very easy for folks to consume and make sure that they're able to get that information where they need it. So I think we're going into a demo here. Eric?
This is Eric speaking about the knowledge management area. Knowledge management is all about enabling people and organizations to find, discover, and connect to the people and content that's important to them. And so in this context, what you're seeing is what we're calling annotations, highlights. So core has been highlighted. Our AI has gone out, has crawled the enterprise's knowledge network and discovered what we think is a Project Core. This is a topic that the reader in the context of Outlook is not familiar with. And so they're able to hover over the topic to reveal more information about Core. We can see an example of a topic card here. A quick summary that's AI generated is It appears on the topic card along with the related people and resources. And so this is a good way for someone who doesn't have context about core to get the quick download of what this project is all about. And the reason that I can see this card is because as the user, I already have permissions to read the files and pages that were used as a source for the AI mining. So here we can see the related resources and people. Again, this is mined from pages and documents that were used as a source for this topic card creation. And then this demo shows what this looks like in the context of a SharePoint page. Again, Project Core is highlighted here along with Project SOAR. These are both topics that the AI has identified as projects that may be relevant for your work. And anywhere you work across all Microsoft canvases, you will eventually see these annotations and be able to hover over them and see the quick topic card view that we showed. And then if a user clicks through, they will get a full topic page. And you can think of this as sort of an AI-generated wiki page, which has more description on the topic and allows me to discover related topics and click through the knowledge network that's been created via the connections between these topics. This same sort of information is also available as part of Microsoft Search. So if I search for Project Core on my company intranet, I will locate the same page. And again, just more description of the related people and resources appear on this wiki page. And this shows the source that was used to create this AI generated wiki. These are all the documents that the AI has found are related and mined for information to create this topic page. And then this is just visualizing the connections amongst topics. So as we pointed out, the AI has identified Project Core and Project SOAR as being likely project names and has created a relationship between these names. This visualization will be used to allow people to navigate amongst related topics and is used as a way to sort of serendipitously discover topics that are in the sphere of Project Core. And soon we expect to be able to include questions and answers via Yammer on this wiki as well. And so Yammer will be a source that we ingest information from to augment these pages. But you can begin to see how, through a combination of web parts that appear on this topic page, you can begin to create a rich source of content around Project Core. Mark 8 is an example of another project that the AI has located. And this shows a view of the user's individual view of the topics that are in their sphere. So you, the user, are related to Mark 8 and Project SOAR. So they will appear on what we're calling the Knowledge Center view. And this is a new destination that users can go to discover all the topics that are related to them via the documents that they've worked on, and also discover new topics that might be of interest to them. You'll also use this view to manage the topics that you're connected to and make simple edits as well. So you don't need to go to this destination to discover this knowledge. The knowledge, as you've seen, will be populated throughout the Microsoft canvases via these annotations. And so you can serendipitously happen upon this knowledge. But if you are curious enough to go and see what are the other topics that may be of interest to me, what are the things that I'm connected to, this would be the place to go. And so this shows, all the news posts, all the topic pages that may be of interest to you. That way you get, a sense of what's fresh, what's trending, that may be related to what you're working on. And as I pointed out a little earlier, these are standard SharePoint pages, meaning that you can customize your view of these individual pages. Web parts can be added as needed, and these knowledge web parts that we are demoing can also be added to any other standard SharePoint page. So, very, very flexible in how you present and consume this information. We expect that people will populate these knowledge web parts throughout SharePoint pages as they're relevant. And this shows, the exact same topic highlights view just in the context of words. So, before we were in Outlook and we saw Project Core highlighted, here we're seeing it highlighted in the context of a Word document. And using Smart Lookup, you get this a very similar view of the topic page with the definition and related people and resources. And we expect to see this in Teams as well. So whenever you're having a chat with a colleague about a project that you both have permissions to view based on the documents that you've worked on together, these annotations will appear, and any questions or answers that are transacted via Teams conversation will also appear on that topic page. And so as you can see, this is a way of, beginning to empower users by delivering information just in time in the context of their work. And then by clicking through to the topic page, you can discover related resources, people, as well as discover adjacent topics. So you can begin to see how we're organizing this information in a way that makes it very consumable and helps us to discover experts within an organization. Great. I'll turn it over to Naomi.
Thanks so much. So let's talk about the next couple of sections here. Just keep going through the slides, Eric, and we'll keep pushing on here. So let's talk a little bit about this organizational area, because we want to think about, the content that's coming into your company and how do we think about making that smarter as it comes in. So as Eric mentioned, there's these great rich experiences that we have from a knowledge perspective. We were trying to really make that simple for the end user to discover and to be able to get to the information that they need, and being able to understand sort of what's available as part of the topic and everything else. But we also want to think about how a business process can be smarter. How do I make the content that's coming into my company a little bit smarter? And so there are lots of ways to do that. So you think through these kind of different ways to do that. So you may be sort of thinking about the different ways that we have to bring this information to life. And so if you expand out a little bit more in terms of how you understand the signals that we're processing, obviously there's the great depth of signals that we have inside of the Microsoft Graph, which you all are very familiar with in the P&P community, being able to understand and explore and traverse those relationships. And so we're doing a couple of different things there. We're also looking at the sort of extra piece here that is understanding what is the content inside of the document too. So you look at the connections here, we'll look at the signal depth, and then we're understanding the content itself. And that's how we're actually extracting a lot of that topical information. So if you think about it, we're using a combination of different methods. So if I think about the Microsoft Graph, we have all of that great layer of data and all the content that's being stored there. You have on top of that kind of a layer of signals of all the collaboration data that, you're sending emails, you're collaborating on documents, you're in meetings, you're doing tasks, all those pieces. And then you can think about the next layer on top of that is really understanding a little bit more about how we can make connections between those things, because we can get more insight by processing it in different ways. Now, what we're doing is actually looking through a lot of the knowledge that we have inside of the organization. So the interesting thing here is we're actually able to use probabilistic programming to understand some of the different areas of documents, understand the content itself and the richness of the content, and then look for ways to sort of verify those connections. And when we do that verification, then we can actually do analysis across those signals and then be able to take that information to understand how things are connected in new and different ways. And so it's really interesting to take the approach that says, how can I see if a project and topics are connected together without somebody actually formally telling me that? Well, I can look through this kind of network of connections, the network of signals that we have, and explore new edges to understand how things are related together. And so that's really understanding how we can create these topical maps that we just showed, but also thinking about more the richness of the signals that we'll have in the future too. So I think on the organized side here, we have a little bit more in terms of understanding the controls that are part of this system. And so with the content controls themselves, we had lots of questions at Ignite and beyond. So I think it's worth to sort of talk through some of these areas. So people are concerned, obviously, with some of the past experiences that they may have had. Sort of how do we make sure that we feel good about the ways that we're including this information? So first off, obviously, with Microsoft 365, we've got a couple of different things. All the IP and the compliance and security controls that you expect with Microsoft 365, and then we're adding a layer on top of that, especially for this knowledge mining area. So how do I think about my knowledge network? It's really about how I'm able to allow different sites. So for example, when you first start with Project Cortex, you'll probably want to scope it to a certain number of sites that you feel good about, that you can understand and have that information traversed and mined for. So we'll have obviously allow sites, we'll have things like block sites in there. You'll be able to exclude content based on sensitivity labels. So again, that great connection with the Microsoft IP work that's been going on. And then of course we are observing the search settings, so no index and no crawl. So if you've ever had experiences before where you've had content that maybe showed up in Delve in the past and you didn't want that to happen, we will obey those same Microsoft search settings as well. And then with topics themselves, so we'll actually be able to give you a way to visualize this as an administrator. So being able to block specific topics, you'll be able to seed the different topics that come in. So think about the connections that we have with managed metadata. You'll also be able to use things like a list of terms, the different acronyms. And then we could also manage who sees those topics too. So kind of the interesting piece here is thinking about how you do adoption inside of the organization. So at first, maybe you want a small group of users using this, and then think about, the different ways that we can have all of the things that could possibly be candidate topics. So think about all of the work that it's doing. Cortex is going through, it's mining all these project names, topic names, and then it can actually show you a list of all of those candidates. And so we may want to do some subject matter experts to verify those candidates first, or whether you choose to have your end user population see all of the things that have already been confirmed as topics. And so there's a kind of different adoption and enablement options that we have there. And the same thing in the sort of topic management area, because you think about, we're going to show you some suggestions of project names and topic names that we found. And then we say, hey, is this a real topic, right? So we've done a lot of work in terms of feedback, but we also want to take a step before that and say, hey, what is me as an administrator, me as a knowledge manager, like, does this really look like a good candidate topic? Is it something I can view and confirm? And then once I've done that, I have the ability to have that be available to my end users. And so the goal around this is to really build up the adoption and the enablement of what knowledge managers look like inside of your organization. What does it look like from a subject matter expertise area? And then how do we make sure that people are having a great experience from day one? So if you take a little bit of time to do some of the work to say, yes, these are real topics, these are real project names, these are things that I want to make sure my end users are seeing, then it'll be a great experience for all of them. And then these abilities around sort of merging and managing topics, so that whole topic lifecycle, we realize, of course, project names and topic names change inside of an organization. We want to be able to manage those things, and then the ability to curate those topics as well. So making sure, again, for all the different organization styles, and we realize that even within different business units, there can be a different style. So some folks may have a more restrictive, say, style, and then other areas of the business may be more open. So we're trying to have sort of the range of controls that allow you to implement Cortex the way that you want it. So with that, let's move on to the more of the connection area here, and we'll just keep going through. And so we'll talk through now a little bit more about content understanding and how we can drive intelligence in there. So when you think about the knowledge network, is that information we're mining through always inside of your organization. We're understanding that content, we're figuring out sort of what's inside of the documents. And so when I mentioned earlier, it's a little bit more about the business process information and how it's coming in. So we want to make content that's actually coming into your organization smarter too. And we want to give you great ways to be able to manage that and extract the metadata that you need from it too. So let's go through, and I think we're going to go through the different methods here. So they'll have 3 different methods as part of Project Cortex. Obviously, there's always a manual method to be able, how you can upload the content and be able to put in the metadata that you need from it and do that extraction. But we want to offer some different ways for folks to be able to process the information that they need and to do it in a quick way. So the first area is really this automated object detection. And if you're familiar with some of the Azure Computer Vision services, what we're doing is essentially having that be part of the SharePoint area. And so we're taking some of the automated ways that Azure has for detecting objects inside of images and making sure that we're able to do some tagging. If you're familiar with some of the capabilities that we have with Microsoft Search already, where we already upload things like a receipt or a business card and we do some automatic detection around that, then we're going to improve those methods as well. And then on top of that, we have the next area, which is really around forms processing. And this is about conjunction with our partnership with the Microsoft Power Platform, which is a new tool called AI Builder. And so you'll be able to build unsupervised and supervised machine learning models for processing forms. And this is really about having information that looks very similar to each other. So think of it as a template. You're filling out forms. You've got that kind of information that's easily extracted from a standardized template. That's a great way to be able to process that information. And then for unstructured documents like contracts and those business agreements and proposals, we really want to give way for a subject matter expert, a business process owner, the folks who are legal experts, procurement experts, all those folks in the organization, really give them a great way to be able to teach the machine the same way as they would a person. And so being able to do a sophisticated entity extraction based on the things that people understand from a nuanced perspective. So let's talk through some of the areas here. So I know we have a quick demo here in terms of the automated object detection. So one of the things we're doing is creating a new destination for content centers. And content centers initially for the first version of Project Cortex will be the place where you can do machine teaching, but we'll also have all of these other analytics capabilities. We'll also have a solution accelerator available too for analytics. So you'll be able to understand a little bit more about the information that's being processed through your pipeline. So that'll be the new content center. And if we click through here, you'll see that as I upload different documents, you'll see that I can put in things like engineering diagrams, I could upload PDFs, etc. And so we want to make sure that it's actually smart out of the box. And so in this case, you can see I've got a PDF document, I've got an engineering wireframe here. And oftentimes, with those kind of drawings, we really want to just extract the handwriting on there as well. So imagine, for example, it was a wireframe diagram, or it's a return or something, and a customer is marked in handwriting where something failed. Then I can upload that, and as I upload and click through here, then you'll see that we are able to extract that metadata automatically from there. So I upload those things, normal way we would do things in SharePoint, and then be able to click through and then make sure that the handwriting is being extracted from those documents. And so that populates the columns here inside of my document library. It's kind of an example of doing that kind of smart out of the box. We want to make sure that things like handwriting extraction are built in, being able to extract the pieces that are most interesting. So I'm going to hand it over to Nkem Okoye. She's going to talk through some of the forms processing area and that connection with AI Builder.
Thank you, Naomi. So as Naomi mentioned, one of the cool capabilities we're having as part of Project Cortex is the ability to really understand from structured, similar kind of documents, what are some of the key value pairs and extract them. Why this is really cool is because instead of you to actually manually go through each document to extract, let's say, like the vendor name, the shipping information, once you upload the documents here on this new sort of content site collection that we have, you can have the model applied on top of the documents to extract metadata from it. So here we've integrated AI Builder with SharePoint. So here's an example of purchase orders. So here we're expecting you to upload 5 documents with the same layout to sort of train the model. So let's say you uploaded a purchase order. Here is an example of the document you uploaded, and then you can see the model sort of goes through to identify some key value pairs, the names, the purchase order, ship to vendor, and then you can see how some of those selected fields will then show up. And then you have the ability to either change what you want the field name to be, or really confirm and say, yes, this is a field I want versus this is a field I don't want. And then once everything has been verified, the model is then applied to this library. So as I said, once you then upload purchase orders, again, things of similar templates, the model then goes through each of the documents and then extracts automatically some of that information that you've sort of identified that you need out of the documents. So I think it's pretty cool because these are things that we know people did manually back in the days, and it really helps you in case you need this sort of information to feed through other processes. or then just apply specific rules on top of it. Another thing that we're introducing as part of Project Cortex is really ways to identify file types and then extract entities from those types of files. So while the AI Builder is really good for structured information in similar templates, the machine teaching capability that we're introducing helps subject matter experts to really look at documents that could be in different formats. So let's say you get like statement of works in Word and PDF, things that are not really consistent, and you can train this model using some samples of, positive samples saying, yes, this is the type of document, and negative samples. And then you really extract from it and say, hey, here are the key information that I want from different types of documents. So this is a little bit, it's more involved than the AI Builder stuff, because the AI Builder has, those definitive templates. But this is really cool because you can extend it to different types of document types, and you're not limited by, are they all PDFs versus are they all Word documents? So here, as I mentioned, we're enabling subject matter experts to teach the machine, which is pretty cool because then you have control over what is and what isn't. So you first of all upload some positive and negative examples, and then we expect you to really help the model say like, hey, yeah, this is what it is. Maybe add some annotation if you want. And then what we also help to do is to also publish a confidence score. So as you continue uploading certain types of positive documents and negative documents, you can really monitor how well the model you've trained is doing with extracting that information from the documents. Once you've trained a model, you can then publish it to a SharePoint library, and then also integrate some of the metadata that gets extracted into some of the regular flows that you do today. So you can kick off different workflows for people based off of what's been extracted from the documents. I think I hand over to Naomi.
Great. Thanks so much, Nkem. So it was great to hear these different areas and sort of think about, the difference between what we would be able to do with forms processing, as you mentioned, with that structured data, and then the machine teaching approach, which is really unstructured data. And then as we're extracting all of that metadata, hopefully you realize that metadata has become even more important in all of these different services. And so that extracted metadata, of course, lives in columns and content types, and being able to use that across the different areas. So if we go to the next slide, we can check out some of the different ways that we've been improving metadata and thinking about all these different areas. So when we look at the ways that we're ingesting content inside of your organization, we want to think about how we're enriching that knowledge network as it comes in. Now, we know that folks have oftentimes, done a wide variety of input that's coming into your content. We want to think about all of those different ways. So anything from a scanner to how you're, maybe taking pictures of stuff with your phone, etc. We want to bring in all of those different pieces of documents. And then we want to think about how we're helping to organize and find that. And so the more that we think about these content management capabilities that we have and thinking about how we manage digital assets becomes even more important in this knowledge network area. So we're making a whole bunch of different investments here because we really want to transition the information that's coming in as part of an information business process into how we can transform it into knowledge inside of your organization, and then how we're really helping to convert that into learning as well. So it really starts off with some of these smart ingestion capabilities. So as Nkem showed you, thinking about forms processing, thinking about machine teaching, where you've got subject matter experts who are able to teach the way that they understand, whether it's legal clauses inside of a document or how a project management or an RFP piece is being structured. And then we think about, using these different ways of machine learning and machine teaching to help with that classification area. And then we really want to be able to deliver more insight as part of that. So if you think about the transition between what becomes knowledge and what becomes learning inside of a system, it's really about how we're able to do a next level of insights and analytics on top of it. So bringing all of these pieces together. So if you next slide, and we'll go into sort of some of these new experiences that we have for metadata. So of many folks who have been in the SharePoint community for a long time will remember the managed metadata service from SharePoint 2010 onwards. And so we're really taking that service, investing heavily in it, and making it something that becomes suite-wide. So not just SharePoint anymore, but really taking it into Microsoft 365. And so we've had customers who've asked for things like, being able to manage terms across an entire of their Microsoft Microsoft 365 area. And this is not something you have to do. It's something we hope that you'll want to do. It's not, a piece where we think MMS is obviously pretty crucial to how you manage terms and synonyms, et cetera, inside of your organization. But we're not making it sort of compulsory or something for you to have to do that for Project Cortex. But we think it's a great set of capabilities, and we're investing heavily so that you can have topics that are the same topics, inside of SharePoint, inside of Teams, inside of Yammer, inside of Stream, all of those different experiences. And so we think it's an important piece there. Now, the same types of things we're doing in content types as well. So we look at how we're investing in those areas. So content types, the way that we do things like content type syndication, those are all being improved as well. And then to make taxonomy a much richer experience, we're really looking at how we're importing and exporting taxonomies as well. So there are many folks out there, many folks in the partner community as well, who have ways of being able to take new term sets that they want to apply to the data that coming in for a customer. There are also things like the Society of Petroleum Engineers. You've got a whole kinds of different industry groups where folks are already have a term set or things like a list of competencies, etc., and they want to be able to apply that to their terms. So we're making it easier to bring those kind of term sets inside of the managed metadata service and to be able to keep those synchronized as well. We also think this is really important for other applications, maybe things like SAP, etc., where you already may be doing some master data management in another place and you want to keep some of those pieces synchronized as well. And then we think about content types. So as I mentioned earlier, we are investing heavily in content types as well. We're improving the content type syndication model. So we're doing things like being able to syndicate them around hubs. So for example, just being able to send the content types that are relevant to hubs, and then those would obviously be distributed to all the sites that are connected to a hub site. And the same thing is true on the content type piece here, because we want to be able to make sure that you're able to look at the parent content types, sort of be able to put those things together. And then we want to think about the ways that we're categorizing these as well. And then you can think about how those get pushed to a hub site themselves. We're also adding end user controls because we want to add content types to a document library. So an end user can say add as content type because it makes sense just to do it there. Sort of think about that template plus policy and having that all be part of the document library as well. And then thinking about these end user experiences here. So for example, in this area, we're really thinking about how we can add those content types, the different columns here. And again, behind the scenes, things like machine teaching, they're actually using content types to store that data. So you can think about, I've trained a business process. Maybe I have something like proposals that are coming into my organization. I'm extracting the metadata there. That's actually getting stored as part of that content type behind the scenes. And so being able to attach all the different things that I would be able to do with content types. So think about policy information, think about the way it's being syndicated, think about the workflow and other things that I want to have as part of that too. So I have those abilities there. And then thinking about these different areas, for example, just being able to navigate within these areas too. So inside of a document library, I have a rich set of terms. I should be able to easily filter the documents within those libraries to be able to see those things by category in this case. So seeing all of those different areas from a term set perspective. And then the last area here, just to sort of make sure we understand a little bit more, is sort of just thinking about the foundational investments that we're making here. So we're really thinking about this as very coherent experience across Microsoft 365. So again, the first version of Project Cortex, we're making these big set of investments, but you'll see even more of those things coming across Microsoft 365 and the suite-wide experiences. We also want to think about how you're taking these enterprise content types and how you're thinking about that based on terms. So there's the search functionality, there's thinking about the ways that we're doing knowledge mining, but we also want to have a managed set of metadata as well for organizations. And so finding that balance between there and sort of making sure that we can help users to be able to discover the content that they need based on some of those areas. And then thinking about that consistent tagging experience, because we want to think about how you're doing term suggestions and auto tagging and all of those different areas coming together. So you saw earlier in the knowledge network demo that Eric did, sort of seeing that area, for example, where Teams is being, picking up on a topic that's being mentioned, being able to see that automatically, being able to do things like smart lookup inside of Word, those kinds of areas, and then thinking about how we're doing that auto tagging essentially for you as well. And then the last area here around enterprise content types, we want to think about the metadata that's coming across your entire tenant and to be able to manage that in a much more cohesive way as well. Okay, so I think just the last couple of slides here, sort of, just recapping a little bit here, thinking about the different ways that we're managing all of this information inside of Project Cortex, applying some really amazing AI capabilities. If I think about, all of that content that's coming into your organization, we're really taking a new set of capabilities, probabilistic area, for example, to do some of the knowledge mining. Then we're layering on new capabilities around deep neural networks and some deep learning there. We're understanding, the different ways that projects and topics and the language inside of an organization and how that's being, things are being talked about, so that we use that as inferred signals. And then being able to obviously couple that with all of the great capabilities that we have across Microsoft 365. And then really thinking about, how we're able to organize and then, of course, empower folks here. So using those great content intelligence, content understanding pieces, making sure we can actually get intelligence from inside of the content as it comes into your organization, and then really making that part of that knowledge network going forward so that we can deliver it inside of great experiences. And then just, a reminder where to go to get more information about Project Cortex. We are scheduled for general availability in the first half of this year. So project team is working very, very hard on all of these pieces. And then we do keep the resource center up to date as well. So if you go to this link, you'll actually see that there's if you scroll down the page, there's a few different forms and things that you can fill out. What we have in there's also a little tab that says demos and videos as well in there. And I sort of want to draw your attention to it there, because if you want demos you want to be able to share with your colleagues, we have those click-through demos similar to the ones that we just showed today are already available there. So you can actually give these little demos yourself and sort of help to drive a bit more awareness with your stakeholders or customers and other folks that you're working with. So Visa, I did in fact leave time for questions, so it would be great to be able to do that.
That's really, really good. No, also there's the classic question what everybody keeps on asking, and some people keep on asking on the chat, is about the licensing, and it's obviously too early on that one. Anything what you want to talk about or mention about the license implications?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have. We are seeing this as a premium set of capabilities. I think we explained that at Ignite, and unfortunately, I don't have any more updates on that to share right now. But we will, of course, at launch be able to share on that too.
Yeah, and also just to recap the timeline, the H1 2020 means spring this year, so within the upcoming months. But because there was a lot of questions related on when is X and Y and Z available, when is this available, when it is available. No timelines yet. We can't give you an ETA, and this is a kind of a classic discussion. Everybody keeps on always asking about the ETA, but we don't want to promise to deliver anything by end of, as an example, by end of this month, because what if we slip and then you make your commitments as a customer on that promise, and then you will be mad, and that's why we don't give a date. So until we can guarantee that the date can be kept. Another question, can we say SharePoint with Project Cortex concept can offer advanced CMS? That's a good question, actually. So is this Project Cortex has actually the kind of a document management services, the advanced document management services, which we're missing in the modern side of the SharePoint? Is this the thing?
Yeah, so I think it's a great thing. It really was one of the genesis areas for Project Cortex. We looked, at the content services area. We spent a long time, looked at the Gartner Magic Quadrants. We looked at all these kind of different areas and industry reports, and we really tried to look at what could we do that's new and different. And so we looked at those areas. We spent a lot of time, obviously, talking to customers and doing research there. And sort of the advanced CMS capabilities, if you think about it, are how can I have things be smarter as the content comes in, and that really speaks to the investments that we're making, both in that object detection area, the forms processing area, and the machine teaching area, really bringing those pieces together. And then the other part of this is well, that's great. Once I have all this amazing content and this richness inside of my organization, how on earth do I find the things that I need to know about, right? And so that's really led us down that kind of knowledge path. And that's why this automated sort of piece around, how do I discover topics and projects inside of my organization? It's so daunting to organizations to say, I'm going to go through and find, here's all the projects in my company. Here's all the topics that could possibly be in my company, right? It's enormous effort. And so, our conclusion was, to really offer these advanced services, that we should be applying AI, what AI is good for. I've worked in ML for the last, 15 years at this point. And so, what's it really great at? It's really great at, brute force going through a whole bunch of things and giving you a great first cut. And so we want to make sure that we're marrying both of those things together. The advanced capabilities, we're using these new machine learning techniques, we're using some really cool tech from across Microsoft, but we also want to make sure there's lots of space in there for when people need to curate and add their subject matter expertise in there, and to make it easy to keep those things up to date. And so that really was the genesis, this whole idea of like, what does the next wave of content services look like?
Yeah,
great
yeah.
question.
And it is absolutely, and it's kind of a recapping on that one now. This is the time when we truly take advantage of the awesomeness of Azure with the technology. So Azure has a lot of these technical bits and pieces, but they are individual tools and individual things, or it's a nail or it's a hammer. But we now, as part of Microsoft 365, we combine and use that and provide that technology and provide that easily available for everybody to consume. Now, there was two other things related on what I just said and what you, Naomi, said, related on taking advantage of truly the cloud and the flexibility of the cloud. Obviously, then that has an implications for on-premises, because we do have on-premises friends as well. So is it fair to say that pretty much nothing about these capabilities will be in on-premises in future?
So that's a great question. So I don't think we've totally decided that, but I will say for folks that have hybrid configurations, that's would be my guidance of where to go. If you're totally on premises, I don't know that I have a good answer for you right now. We can think a little bit more about it. But from a hybrid configuration, the wonderful thing is here with Cortex, as you all know, I was working on Microsoft Search before, and so the same kinds of connections that we have. You think about the way that we're able to have that hybrid information come to the Microsoft Graph. So if you have on-prem servers, you've got it connected with Cloud SSA, you're having that information up in the graph. Once it's there and it's in the Microsoft Graph, then it's available for Project Cortex to basically crunch on and to do discovery on. So if you still have a bunch of stuff that's connected, obviously in a hybrid environment, still definitely part of what we can do with Cortex.
Absolutely. But this is a good example of a cloud first, and we've been having a cloud first solution for SharePoint for quite a long time already. So on premises is SharePoint 2019, which is actually quite old comparing what we have in the cloud. But now one final thing, we're running obviously out of time as well, but what about the development side of the house? And there was a question related on APIs and automation. Is there a partner play here, and is there an API plan to be available for people to extend or modify or automate any of these things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think about this as really being a great foundation for many new partner offerings, and I hope to see lots of creativity with that as well. So there's a couple of different spaces. There is also a content services partner program. If you haven't seen that, I think there's a link out on the tech community to it as well. So if you look for Microsoft Content Services Partner Program, so we do have that as well. So we're in this area kind of with content services, a couple different things. So if I was thinking about myself as a developer, and I was thinking about the APIs that I would have access to, we're going to do a whole bunch of different things. One is to have a set of taxonomy APIs essentially for the managed metadata service. So thinking about, we talked about that import export sort of functionality. Obviously, we want you to be able to automate that. We also want to have different ways for you to connect in, potentially other term sets, other things that you want to manage as part of that too. And then thinking about maybe different ways that you might give a different interface, or be able to build on top of the term sets themselves. So think about managed metadata services. How do I bring that maybe into other applications that I'm building? Those kinds of areas. So that's kind of on the MMS side of the house. Now, on the sort of content understanding side of the house, obviously we're using a lot of the Azure capabilities. So go bone up on the Azure Cognitive Services, because those APIs are ones that you'll be able to call as well, and be able to sort of bring that together with the data that we have inside of Cortex. So there's a great way to be able to extract that and get the information you need there. And then I think about it on the sort of more the systems integrator side of the house. So, there's a great sort of different ways to think about how we do adoption for customers here, and then how you build new services on top of capabilities like Project Cortex. It's a great thing to be able to have this new platform essentially inside of Microsoft 365. So I always think about it as kind of a different layer on top of that. So we will have APIs available for extensions. We will think about the ways that we do web parts, the traditional ways that we already build with SPFX, as people well know. Thinking about the web parts that you'll be able to extend there, and then we're looking at at different ways to do extensibility to be able to call both the knowledge mining services as well as the way that we call topics as well inside of an organization. So lots of potential there, and we're definitely considering how we make partners a big part of this as well.
Yeah, excellent. That I think everybody, especially on the dev side of the house, people want to hear about that one, and it's a great thing to know that from a day one we've been thinking about the extensibility side of the house as well.
Exactly.
Now I think that's it for today. So thank you, Eric. Thank you, Nkem. Thank you, Naomi. Really great presentation and recapping actually what's coming and what are the capabilities. And obviously this is one step at a time journey. It's not going to be a big bang and everything is going to be available immediately, right, Naomi? So we will get some of the stuff first whenever it's time, and then we'll reiterate based on the feedback from our users and partners what needs to be there. So it's going to be a journey, but more and more stuff will be available later this spring. And SBC, SharePoint Conference, probably is going to be the big, let's say, some sort of a big announcements probably is happening there, we can assume.
People should book tickets. I couldn't say that, Lisa. I couldn't possibly say that, but people should buy tickets for the SharePoint conference.
Yes, there will be good announcements in the SharePoint conference. Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
That would be my recommendation.
Yes. Excellent. But thank you for that one.